Welcome. We are proud to announce that 2015 was a wonderful year. Really great. Across the world, many journalists kept doing their work despite all the difficulties they were facing. In Sri Lanka, journalists faced fewer threats and attacks than in previous years. In Central America, journalists kept delving into corruption and organized crime. And in Syria, journalists and activists continued to report on human rights violations, despite the threats on their lives. But let's face it, in the last year, there was mostly bad news. The share of the world's population that enjoys press freedom stood at just 13%, meaning less than 1 in 7 people live in countries where coverage of political news is robust, the safety of journalists is guaranteed, state intrusion in media affairs is minimal, and the press is not subject to legal or economic pressures. Global press freedom declined to its lowest point in 12 years in 2015. The two main reasons? Intimidation and violence faced by journalists, and heightened partisanship and polarization in countries' media environment. This only leaves space for the dominant narrative by governments and warring parties, leaving no room for the other side of the story. Whether caused by intimidation, censorship, or a lack of access to information, this is a great threat to global press freedom. Pressure on journalists to display political loyalty was intense in Egypt, where the media embraced a pro-government narrative. Syria remained the deadliest place in the world for journalists. IS has also proven extremely adept by using social media to spread its raw propaganda around the world. In Turkey, the government took over critical private media groups and turned them over to politically friendly managers. But we also see a shift in Europe. Europe has suffered the largest drop in press freedom over the past 10 years of any region. The year began with the tragic murder of 8 cartoonists at Charlie Hebdo. In the early days after the attack, an outpouring of support for freedom of expression raised hopes for lasting solidarity. However, as the year progressed, media freedom in some of the world's strongest democracies came under pressure. The French government pushed through an intelligence bill, giving authorities sweeping surveillance powers with little oversight. The British government published a similar draft bill. One of the first moves of the new Polish government was to pass legislation that allows it to hire and fire the management of the state-owned media. But we are proud to tell you the Netherlands is at the 2nd position in the Freedom of the Press Index of 2015. And even though it might take some time, freedom of information requests do come back eventually. No, let's be honest. Also in the Netherlands, it is getting more and more difficult for journalists to do their job. The proposal to change the law on intelligence and security services is making it impossible for journalists to guarantee the anonymity of their sources.